Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, or wherever you are in the world when you're seeing this. Um, I am coming on to share with you regarding a plant that cries, basically. So the plant is called a philodendron, and I watered my philodendron, and what I noticed is when I watered it, like the next day when I got up and I saw the plant, it had there was water underneath it. Actually, where I watered, it looked like drips of or drops of water, I should say. And so I was like, okay, why is my plant crying? And so many of you, if you pay attention to your plants, probably have noticed that when you water your philodendron, sometimes you'll see droplets of water on the leaves, or maybe you'll see droplets of water around the plant once you've watered it, usually the next day, maybe a couple of days. And that will keep happening. So I wanted to cover this with you today, just kind of some overall high level information regarding the plant that you have. So if I touch this right now, this is my philodendron. And I don't know if you can see, but I have water beads on the plant, the actual leaf. My ends actually have water on them. You can see that on my finger, how it has water on them as well. And so I was like, okay, am I over watering it or what am I doing? But I'm not over watering the plant, just to let you know. So why do the philodendrons, and here's one, I don't know if you can see that. Let me bring that up close. I don't know if you can see that, but you see that water bead right there. And so also the end is wet as well. So just kind of want to enlighten you. This is a beautiful plant, first of all. Let me just share that with you. It's very veiny. And I'm going to kind of tell you how it gets veiny like that, okay? Now, if you look at the other leaves, like there's some leaves that are all green. And then I have some leaves that also have the white in them. Now that's done on purpose, basically by the philodendron. So the philodendron actually is a very popular house plant. I made my little notes here so I can give you guys accurate information. And there are many varieties of the philodendron. So you may have one that doesn't look necessarily like the one I have, but you may notice that after you water it, it's weeping a little bit or something like that. They grow throughout all locations, actually. So you may see some water dripping on one of your plants that does not look like mine, or it may have water beads on it, if you will, standing up on the plant, or maybe droplets on wherever you have it sitting. So those tiny drops of water that actually hang from the plant leaf, or maybe they're on the drooping tips of it. Those are not tears from the plant. Your plant is not sick. It's not that your plant is not healthy. It's not crying out for anything additional that it needs. All it is just saying that the plant actually has more water than what it needs to stay healthy. Okay? Let me just tell you about the needs of this plant. Very, very simple, very simplistic while you're taking a look at it. So even in the rainforest, the aerial roots from this plant actually draw nourishment from the air. And so this philodendron, all it really needs is water, light, and nutrients to actually prosper. And the green chloroplast in the leaves, which is why some of the leaves are more green than others, they're actually power stations, if you will. And what they do is they actually take the light that the plant gets and it actually changes it over into energy, right? How does it do that? Where do we get energy from? We get energy from carbohydrates, right? Or sugars, if you will. The same thing with the plant, right? And what they do, the sugars or the carbohydrates, or however you want to put it, the energy, right? It actually travels down to the plant's roots, right? The root contains actually the area where the sugar actually gets absorbed, right? So it changes and converts it into nitrogen gas, right? Phosphorus, so it converts it into nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and other nutrients that it needs in order to build plant tissue, right? What does that mean, Valencia? To make it stronger, right? The tissue then is distributed throughout the plant along with the waste products, right? Which means that including the excess water that your plant does not need, it's actually excreted through the pores on the bottom of the leaves. So you may see some that where the water is like running down on the sides of the leaves to the bottom. That's all natural, right? This is considered considered a hydrologic cycle, right? Same thing that we go through when we ingest something, we excrete it, right? We excrete it through our urine, we excrete it through our feces, right? And that's basically the water cycle for this plant throughout its entire life. So this is actually called transpiration, right? So if its major task during the day is photosynthesis and respiration, then its main work at nighttime is transpiration. So respiration, we know, is a process that combines glucose with oxygen. That's the energy that moves the nutrients up through the plant, right? Water actually is a byproduct of respiration, which actually pushes it upward, and then it takes it down through the pathways that lead through the plant. So now you know. So the plant's leaves, or if you will, branches, whatever you want to call it, that's how this thing works. And about 10% of this water actually hydrates all of the plant cells, right? Which actually creates a condition, you guys can look this up, known as Tuger pressure, right? And when it has that Tuger pressure, right, that means the remaining 90% of the water actually gets expelled, producing what? Humidity. We all know that it's important for plants to have humidity, right? So it creates a higher humidity around the plant and the water that drips off of the growing leaves. So nothing's wrong. It's not gonna die. Don't think that it's dying out. What you need to know is that it drips the water because the water is drawn up through the plant, right? And then excreted out through the leaves. Whatever it doesn't need, whatever amount of water it doesn't need, it's excreted out through the plant. So now what comes after that is that at the leaf's end of the philodendron, it will evaporate. It will either evaporate or it'll fall from the plant, right? And then sometimes the leaf will soak it back in. So you may see some water spots where it's evaporated. You can always spray your plant. You can always take a nice moist towel and wipe that off. And that will evaporate if it has already evaporated and you have some spots on there. So you definitely can do that. But there's nothing wrong. I want to assure you there's nothing wrong with your philodendron if you see where it has water spots on it, or if you see where it has water droplets, either where you watered it or if you see the droplets on the leaves. Gravity happens to pull water downward, right? And so it pulls the water down along the veins of the actual leaf. And that's how you see, that's how it flows, right? And so it flows, and that's how you end up with the little droplets after you water it. You might see them on your stand or on your table, wherever you have your plant sitting. But you will see those droplets, and don't be alarmed, right? Nothing's going to happen to it. It's not dying. It's just getting rid of the excess water. It doesn't need it, and so it's getting rid of it. So I challenge you, though, before you water it again, you want to make sure that your soil is at least 2/3 dry before you go to water it again. And to some degree, if you're going into the wintertime in your city where you live, be mindful, because during the winter time, you do have your home probably is blowing heat, which is dry air, okay? But also, our homes tend to be a bit cooler in the wintertime. So just be mindful of that before you go to water your plants, because you don't want to overwater them. And if it's kind of cool in your house, they will absorb the water at a slower pace, okay? So I just wanted to come on and let you know, if you see water dripping from your philodendron, don't be nervous. Don't think that it's crying. Don't think that it's dying. It's not. It's just all a part. It's the circle of life, like the Lion King. It's the circle of life. And so it's just getting rid of or excreting the excess water that it actually does not need. So be okay with that. Kind of like life. When it weighs you down, sometimes there's excess and you just need to get rid of. So it's not carrying that excess baggage of water that it doesn't need. Man, we can learn a lot from plants, okay? We could really learn an awful lot from plants. Don't carry the excess baggage that you don't need. If gravity pulls it down and pulls it off of you, guess what? It makes you a whole lot lighter. Now, the last thing I want to go over, and I'm gonna do a whole video on this, and you guys can follow me. I have a YouTube channel. You can follow me on YouTube if you want. But for some reason, like maybe over the course of the last week, I've had several people reach out to me, and I met this lady in the store, and we were talking about plants, and she said she has a money tree plant. And she says, something is wrong with my money tree plant. She's like, I don't know what's wrong with it. And so I asked her, where did she have the plant? Where was the plant in her house? So she actually pulled it up on her phone. She showed me a picture. So I'm going to share this with you guys. And I'm sharing it with you because I know it works, okay? First of all, she had a bunch of plants and she had them all together. But her money tree was over in a separate place, not far from the plants, but too far to make a connection. We call this nesting, right? And so what happened, was happening to her money tree is that it was beginning to drop leaves, right? It was beginning to kind of die off. And I told her, I said, you need to bring it together, preferably with another money tree plant. So she had two, right? But she had one at home and she had one in her office. Well, she took the one from home and took it to her office, and now it's not doing as well. Her office happens to have be a cooler environment than it is at home. So what I told her to do was take the money tree plant back home, sit it right next to the other money tree plant. They like to nest, and they grow so much better when they are nesting, when they are together, right? And so put it back together. Put those two together. You don't have to put them in the same pot, but they like it when their leaves are touching. If their leaves are touching, because they draw strength, they draw humidity, they draw oxygen, they help get rid of toxins, and they do all of that together. Money tree plants definitely believe in staying together. So if you have a money tree plant, and in this time of the year, you notice that it's kind of struggling a little bit, nest it with some of your other plants. Maybe you don't have two money trees, but maybe you have another plant. Nest it, bring it close together where it can touch the leaves of another plant. And you'll see it start to brighten up, starting to lighten up and start to grow back, okay? Don't be fearful. It won't die, but you really do. They require nesting. They like to touch. And they're very easy to grow, but they're also very temperamental. So I did tell her, when you bring it home, sit it with the other plant and sit it with the other money tree plant, so their leaves can touch, and do not move it for at least 90 days. And when you move it, move them together. And then when you see that they're strong enough, you can begin to separate them, but do it small spaces at a time. They're very temperamental about their spacing. They're very temperamental about where you place them, and they're very temperamental about growing alone. Now, if you have a money tree plant and you brought it home and it's always been by itself, then guess what? Yours will do fine. But for those of you that have had 2 or 3 and you've had them together and they did really, really good, and then you separated them and now they're not doing so good, I'm telling you, put them back together and they'll start to grow. They also like humidity. So if you can get a vaporizer, I'm sorry, not a vaporizer, a humidifier, and put it near them, they eat that up. So you can bring back that money tree plant. So kudos to those of you that have the money tree plant. Kudos to those of you that is actually growing and doing well for you. Those of you that may be struggling with your money tree, that means you really need to nest it and create a humid environment for it, and it'll start to do better. And nesting the plant, I would nest it with other plants. If you have other tall plants in your house, I would nest them so that the leaves can touch, okay? All right, that's all I have for you on today. On Sunday, we'll be together again. I'm going to show you how to build a humidity box. I have a plant that is going into its dormant season. And so many of us would take our plants and we would throw them out because we believe that they're dying. Let me see if I can reach and grab this plant. I'm going to do a video and I'll show you guys all my plants. But this is my plant. Okay. Now, this is the Amazonica, right? It has the big leaves. Some people call it poly. But this is my Amazonica. And so the leaves are huge on this plant. It's so beautiful. And they're kind of like rubber. This plant is very, very specific about how it's kept. And they can sense when it's not time for them to bloom or to grow. And so most people would say, okay, oh my goodness, this plant is dying because this leaf, I had 2 leaves at the bottom and they actually died off. But what I know about this plant is that it knows that winter is coming. And so what it's doing is it's going dormant. So what I'm going to do with that plant is I'm going to actually create a humidity box for it so that it'll keep. And that way, when the spring rolls around again, guess what? It'll bloom right back. Don't throw your ferns away. Don't throw your epidendrums away. Don't throw those away, guys. Those will grow. You just need to create a humidity box to put them in, okay? So we'll be doing that on my next video. Listen, don't forget, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Facebook, follow me on IG, and you can get all the plant information that I have to share on my YouTube channel. I will be including links on my YouTube channel so you can use exactly what I'm using to grow my plants. Hey, it's been great. Thanks for spending time with me on tonight. Remember, this is how we grow, right? This is how we grow. We grow by learning. So I encourage you, don't give up on your plants. Your philodendron is not weeping or crying. It's just saying, hey, listen, I'm getting rid of the excess baggage, the excess water. I really don't need it to be healthy. I'm already healthy. So enjoy yourself. Have an amazing time with your plants. Happy planting. Carry on.